Yo, what's up? Dr. Swole here, MD, pro physique athlete. Today I'm going to be sharing a full 5-day beginner hypertrophy program based on the Dr. Swole Arnold split. This is a hybrid 5-day split that combines the Dr. Swole split with the Arnold split. 5 days can be a little bit tricky to program for because of the asymmetric setup. And you guys have seen me cover some options like push-pull legs upper-lower and the Arnold split upper-lower. But I realized that I could combine my own Dr. Swole split with the Arnold split to create a unique combination. And I think it works particularly well for 5 days per week for a few reasons that we'll explain later. Okay, let's briefly talk about the split. So this is a combination of the Arnold split, which is this 3-day segment, and the Dr. Swole split, which is this 2-day segment. Let's talk about the Arnold split first. Here you have 3 days, chest, back, legs, and shoulders and arms. This is in a slightly different order than what I've talked about before, which would normally be chest, back, shoulders and arms, and legs. There are reasons for this. Now let's talk about the Dr. Swole split, which is basically a 2-day setup that divides your body into a combination of the Arnold split and push-pull. The push-pull aspect of this is modeled in our leg training, where we divide up quads, calves, and then glutes and hamstrings. And then we use an Arnold type division to split up our upper body. So chest and back goes together, and then shoulders and arms goes together. I actually think this is one of the best possible setups for 5 days per week and will work really well for beginners. It's a low volume program. We'll start off with a program walkthrough where I'll share everything you'll need to know to run it yourself, including exercises, sets, and reps. Then we'll talk about the weekly setup, or the split layout, and I'll go into some in-depth analysis of why I created this split. And finally, we'll talk about the pros and cons of this 5-day hypertrophy program based on the Dr. Swole Arnold split. All right, let's do our program walkthrough. So this is the Dr. Swole Arnold split program. It's set with low volumes, well designed for a beginner athlete. On day 1, we have quads, chest, back, and calves. Then on day 2, glutes, hamstrings, shoulders, and arms. Then we have chest, back, legs, and shoulders and arms. Here are the exercises, and here we have the sets and reps. Down here I have the total number of sets for each workout to give you an idea of workout length, and here we have the total number of sets for each muscle group each week. Let's get going here. So on our first day, we started off with squats for the quads, 3 sets. So work up to 1 top heavy set of 5 to 8 reps, followed by 2 back off sets of 5 to 8 reps with about 10% off the bar. Then we move on to leg extensions, also for the quads, 2 sets of 10 to 15. Then we have dumbbell bench press for the chest, 3 sets, and we're also using a top set back off method here. 1 top heavy set of 5 to 8 reps, followed by 2 back off sets of 5 to 8 reps with about 10% lighter weight. I really like the top set back off method because it allows you to touch some heavy weights with that top heavy set, as well as getting in some volume with slightly lower weights. Then we have single arm dumbbell rows for the back, 2 sets of 6 to 10, and I really want you to be focusing on going heavy on these. And then we have neutral grip lat pull downs, also for the back, 2 sets of 8 to 12. Next, we have machine calf raises for the calves, and we're using a MyRep scheme here. So you're going to work up to 1 main set of 10 to 15 reps, followed by 6 back off sets of 3 to 5 reps. And you're going to be taking about 10 seconds of rest in between all of these. So do your main set, then take 10 seconds. I just count down from 10, and then do 6 more mini sets with only about 10 seconds rest. And this makes sure that you're staying in that near failure zone, so you're accumulating a lot of effective reps. Moving on to our second day, we start up with dumbbell RDLs for the glutes and hamstrings, 3 sets of 8 to 12. I think these are an awesome deadlift variation, but they only work well for beginners because you're going to get too strong for the dumbbells in your gym pretty quickly. I really do want you to be pushing progressive overload on these though, and know that you can graduate to a barbell when you get too strong for the dumbbells. Then we have barbell hip thrust for the glutes and hamstrings, 2 sets of 6 to 10. Lying bicep curls for the biceps, 3 sets of 6 to 10, and these are like incline curls except you lie flat on your back on a horizontal bench. While you're on that bench, you can superset with easy bar skull crushers for the triceps, 3 sets of 8 to 12. Then we have machine preacher curls also for the biceps, 2 sets of 8 to 12. And finally, cable lateral raises for the side delts, 3 sets of 8 to 12. And I would recommend pausing at the top for about a second here to really make sure you're controlling the weight. Then we have chest and back day. We started with T-bar rows for the back, 4 sets. And we're also using a top set back off method here. So 1 top heavy set of 6 to 10 reps, followed by 3 back off sets of 6 to 10 reps with about 10% lighter weight. And as you can see, I quite like using the top set back off method even for accessory movements. You do have to choose movements that are going to be well predisposed to strength development though. So for example, this wouldn't work as well for a lot of isolation movements. Then we have incline bench press for the chest, 3 sets of 8 to 12. You will see that in this day I've given T-bar rows a slight priority over our incline bench press because it comes first. And then we have machine bench press also for the chest, 2 sets of 10 to 15. After that, neutral grip pull downs again for the back, 4 sets of 12 to 20. I often get asked if it's okay to repeat exercises or even workouts across the week, and that's totally fine. Especially at a beginner level, having some higher frequency even of the same exercises will give you more chance to practice with those exercises and develop some neural adaptations for strength. At an advanced level, you may want a bit more variety. Then we have barbell upright rows for the side delts, but also the traps, 3 sets of 6 to 10. And then going on to leg day, we start with deadlift for the glutes and hamstrings, and I just have you working up to one top heavy set of 5 to 8 reps. Can do a lot with one heavy set of deadlifts, and most beginners should be able to progress from week to week, even with such low volumes. Then we have hack squats for the quads, 4 sets of 8 to 12 reps. A hack squat is a really nice way to lock in and crush your quads without accumulating as much systemic fatigue as you would with a squat. You guys know I really like basic compound free weight movements for beginners, but since we've already got a heavy deadlift on this day, it's reasonable to follow with some machine work. Notice that we have a day dedicated to the squat, which comes after a rest day, so you'll be fresh, and a day dedicated to the deadlift. Note that the ordering of these days is important. I have T-bar rows coming before deadlift, and you wouldn't want it the other way around, because if you're really fatigued after a tough deadlift, it will affect your T-bar row. Then we have leg press calf raises for the calves, and we have a my rep scheme again here, so one main set of 8 to 12 reps, followed by 6 mini sets of 3 to 5 reps. Now I place these two exercises back to back because potentially you could do a hack squat calf raise. Depending on what kind of hack squat machine you have, you could do calf raises on it, and that would actually work very well. But I've just left it as a leg press here because most people have a leg press. And if you don't have a hack squat, I'd recommend doing leg presses here. Then we have lunges for the quads and the glutes and hamstrings, 3 sets of 8 to 12, and leg curls for the hamstrings, 2 sets of 10 to 15. Moving on, we have our last day, shoulders and arms. And we started with close grip bench press for the triceps, but also the chest. 3 sets, and we're using a top set back off method here, one top heavy set of 6 to 10 reps followed by 2 back off sets. While you're on the bench, you can actually superset this with some seated dumbbell curls for the biceps, 2 sets of 8 to 12. After that, we have dumbbell overhead press, which mainly hits the front delts but also the upper chest and the triceps, one top heavy set of 6 to 10 reps followed by 2 back off sets of 6 to 10 reps. You will often see that I'll give overhead press a priority over close grip bench press, but here I actually want to give close grip bench press the first movement of the day to really get a little bit more chest and tricep work. You'll see that this helps us to distribute our chest training over 3 days. So even though this is technically a shoulder and arm day, I'm actually using it indirectly to hit our chest. When you have a good knowledge of what different muscle groups, different exercises target, you can really start playing around with the frequency. Then we have cable press downs for the triceps, 3 sets of 10 to 15, which you can superset on the cable stack with rope hammer curls for the biceps, 3 sets of 10 to 15. Then we have barbell upright rows again for the side delts, 3 sets of 10 to 15, and you'll see that I switch up rep ranges when I repeat exercises. And finally, we have cable lateral raises for the side delts, 3 sets of 12 to 20. Notice here that our leg training is actually distributed over 3 days in this program, and also that we have slightly more exercises and sets on the shoulder arm day, which is okay because these exercises are less fatiguing. You'll see here that our biceps actually get a 4 times per week frequency since they're trained indirectly with back training and then trained directly with our shoulder and arm type days. This also happens for the triceps since they get trained with pushing movements, and side delts are getting trained 3 times per week.
All right, now that you've seen the program, let's talk about the weekly setup. So the Dr. Swole Arnold hybrid split. We start off with the Dr. Swole split where we have quads, chest, back, and calves, and then glutes, hamstrings, shoulders, and arms. And then we have the Arnold split segment, chest, back, legs, shoulders, and arms. One of the first things to point out here is that I really like the pairing of chest, back, and shoulders and arms. This allows you to move your bicep and tricep training off of chest and back training. When you split this up, you want to have your shoulders and arms coming after chest and back because you don't want to go into heavy pushing and pulling movements with sore biceps and triceps. And this works really naturally here in this split with both the Dr. Swole split and the Arnold split. Notice that I switched up the orders of the days in the Arnold split where we have chest and back, then legs, then shoulders and arms, rather than shoulders and arms coming before legs. Since we have a 5-day split here, we're actually able to solve the problem of the traditional Arnold split where shoulders and chest comes back to back. We get to separate our chest and shoulder training nicely across the week. Plus, this also serves to separate out our shoulder and back training. As you saw, I put a bit of side delt work on chest and back day. And when you count how arms are trained indirectly with chest and back training, this actually splits up our shoulder and arm training really nicely. The next thing to notice about this split is that it divides up the work for each muscle group really evenly across the week. Basically, when you look at all the muscle groups like legs, chest and back, shoulders and arms, they're all very nicely separated from each other. With some 5-day splits, you'll end up having bunching up of certain muscle group training in the week. For example, you might have all of your arm training split up over 2 days, but only 2 days apart. Ideally, you want to split up your training for each muscle group as evenly as possible across the week, so you can make the most use of the rest time in between. Now, the reason this split divides up your muscle groups so evenly is because the Dr. Swole split is actually a derivative of the Arnold split. The fact that I have chest and back and shoulders and arms here means that when this comes up again later in the week, chest, back, and shoulders and arms, the order is preserved. That way you get a nice even distribution of fatigue between your chest and back and shoulder and arm workouts compared to each other. Your repeated quad and glute and hamstring training is also separated, and this is preserved even though we've swapped shoulders and arms. Notice that this ordering of the split wouldn't work as well in a 6-day Arnold setup, because you would otherwise have a repeating cycle coming after and not a rest day. For instance, if we repeated this cycle here, you'd have a shoulder and arm day coming before chest and back. Okay, now let's talk about the pros and cons of the Dr. Swole Arnold split. Starting off with the pros, shoulders and arms are training when they're fresh. And this is one thing that I really like about pairing chest and back and shoulders and arms. With a lot of popular splits out there like upper lower, push-pull legs, and full body, your bicep and tricep training comes after your heavy pushing and pulling. If your small muscle groups are already fatigued by being trained indirectly with your main compound movements, they may not perform as well on isolation work. Here, both the Dr. Swole split and the Arnold split have the benefit of splitting up chest, back, and shoulder and arm training. Next, this 5-day split gives you a high frequency for chest, shoulders, and arms. We modify this a little bit by deliberately putting some side delt work on our chest and back day and choosing close grip bench press as our main tricep movement on shoulder and arm day. But I particularly like the higher frequency for the shoulder and arm training. I think a lot of naturals are lacking in their shoulders and arms. Next, your leg training is somewhat split up across the week over 3 days. With most popular splits out there, your leg training is often heaped up on one big heavy leg day, which you know I hate, or split up over 2 days, like with a 4-day upper lower or push-pull legs. Even the traditional 6-day Arnold split setup only has 2 leg days. This means that your leg days are still going to be significantly more difficult than your upper body focused days. So I like being able to spread out the fatigue of your leg training across more days. This may not make the biggest difference as a beginner, but it will play out as you become more advanced. Finally, this split gives some priority to accessory movements. For example, with our chest and back day, we put T-bar rows first, and with our shoulder and arm day, we were able to give some priority to our close grip bench press. Okay, now let's talk about the cons of this program. I should probably just say con because there's only one here. Basically, quads and glutes and hamstrings do come back to back at the beginning of the week. And this is part of the Dr. Swole split. Notice that we actually address this in this program by choosing very posterior chain dominant glute and hamstring exercises for our glute and hamstring day on day 2. Particularly dumbbell RDLs and barbell hip thrusts are very biased towards the glutes and hamstrings and don't use very much quad at all. So even if you had sore quads, this won't affect your training. Notice that this would become a problem if we put, for example, sumo deadlift on day 2 after squats. And here we take advantage of the leg day in the Arnold split later in the week, which doesn't have any leg training surrounding it, so we can place our other heavy movements there. A similar issue also comes up with chest and shoulder training. So in the Dr. Swole split at the beginning of the week, you have chest and back and then shoulders the next day. But since we're only overhead pressing once a week, I've placed that strategically on the shoulder and arm day later in the week. And since we swapped legs and shoulders and arms later in the week, you don't have any bench press and then overhead press coming back to back. So this split actually solves one of the common problems in the Arnold split. And you'll see that we get these unique advantages when we combine 2 splits in a 5-day setup. I will be sharing the full program as an Excel file in my Facebook group. So if you haven't found the group already, find the link in the description below, join the group, and you can download the program for free. If you want to see a similar 5-day setup that has the Arnold split, but instead of the Dr. Swole split has the upper lower split at the beginning of the week, check out this video where I explain a program based on the Arnold upper lower split. I am the king of free hypertrophy programming on YouTube, so for more top-notch science-based hypertrophy programs, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.